Chapter 11 of Management, an Integrated Approach. Organizational Change. Part 3. Combating Resistance to Change. One way to better understand resistance to change is to assess an organization's resources, processes, and values. An organization's resources can dramatically affect the difficulty of engaging the organization in change. Resources include people, equipment, and capital, but they also include intellectual property, brand identity, R&D designs, and relationships with customers, distributors, and suppliers. Organizations that have access to abundant high-quality resources face a double-edged sword. At one level, they are in a better position to successfully confront resistance to change, but, at another level, the abundance of resources means greater attachment to the status quo and a lack of urgency in the organization. Organizations with poor brand images, lack of cash, or people without the necessary skills to drive change can have lots of urgency within the organization, but simply lack the resources to drive change efforts. While resistance to change ultimately resides within individuals, it is exacerbated by organizational systems. Over time, organizations develop formal processes, such as workforce planning, and informal processes, such as those that determine how decisions are made to allocate resources. The very nature of these processes invites employees to act the same way every time. Their sameness brings greater speed and efficiency, yet these routines and systems become ingrained in the organizational practices and can produce a massive amount of resistance when organizations begin a transformation initiative. Breaking these processes can be extremely difficult. The values of an organization are another key factor to consider in managing resistance to change. In the change process, values refer to the manner in which employees work together and set priorities about what is important. In essence, values are reflected in the culture of an organization and impact the way people think and act. What people believe, what they value, what their expectations are for the ways things should be done, and what actions they take because of those predispositions often are the most crucial part in determining whether an organizational change effort will succeed. As noted in Chapter 8, a strong set of values combined with a strong culture can be a formidable barrier to change. Engaging hearts and minds. Organizational leaders often try to help their employees reason through the necessity of change, but they forget to engage employees' hearts and emotional commitment. They enact change as if structural and procedural changes, or knowledge creation itself, will bring about the desired transformation. Without an emotional engagement that goes beyond analytical reason or structural redesign, inertia will break down any transformational efforts. In the same vein, many change programs falsely equate increased knowledge with improved performance. While improved action may be correlated to increased knowledge, education alone will not improve performance, much less produce change. Gail McGovern learned the importance of engaging the heart of her organization when she oversaw the transformation of the American Red Cross. When she took over the organization in 2009, it was suffering from a number of problems, including a large financial deficit and a slow, bureaucratic, and confusing organizational structure. McGovern and her senior team developed a creative and logical restructuring plan that they thought would be an easy sell to the board and the employees. It was not. While the plan was solid, it did not engender passion. McGovern decided to alter the process of change, and reached out to a number of lower-level executives to help reshape and reframe the plan. She also decided to share the plan with all 30,000 employees, and hundreds of thousands of volunteers. Their input made the plan better and allowed employees to feel a sense of purpose and emotional, not just logical, understanding. Recalling her presentation of the final plan to the chapters of American Red Cross, McGovern stated, "I found myself delivering a deeply emotional talk. I pointed to recent disasters, described how local chapters responded, and implored the group to save the Red Cross. Earlier in my career, I would have considered that kind of speech sappy, but in the room I saw people's skepticism change to belief. New structures and processes can only provide avenues for change to be implemented, they cannot enforce it. Explaining analytical reasoning for change or delivering programs designed to increase participant knowledge can only build the potential for change, not produce it. Successful organizational change efforts, therefore, build a coalition of believers in the need for change, as McGovern did at the American Red Cross, and they address the key questions that employees have about the impact of change, including the following: what will I have to give up? Will I get credit for past achievements? Will I know how to do it? How does this change affect my career prospects? Do I have the energy to make this change? Am I really in a position to make a difference? What is in this change for me? Some of these questions will be explicitly stated, but others will remain beneath the surface. Successful change leaders help employees answer these questions. The keys to addressing resistance to change are to listen, communicate, involve, and train. Leaders must allow employees impacted by change to vent their frustrations and concerns. If there is no valid outlet for these issues, anger will bubble below the surface and become a strong barrier. As noted, leaders need to constantly communicate the benefits of change and the costs associated with not changing. Effective communication helps build greater trust and understanding throughout an organization. Creating opportunities for key individuals to be a part of the change process often enables leaders to generate a greater level of buy-in and commitment, not just compliance. One common form of involvement includes the establishment of task forces with specific assignments. Finally, employees need to know that there is a path for success that will be facilitated through training and development opportunities. Employees won't be left to fend for themselves. Without an understanding of the factors that cause inertia and resistance to change initiatives are unlikely to succeed. In certain circumstances, leaders may need to force employees to engage in the change process. The use of coercion can be effective in times of crisis or turmoil, but it cannot serve as a long-term approach to institutionalizing change. Characteristics of change leaders. The high failure rate of change initiatives points to the difficulty that most individuals and organizations encounter when they try to adapt to internal or external drivers of change. As noted, the forces of resistance can seem insurmountable. To become a change leader requires the drive for change but demands much more than just that. If you are to drive change in your future job, what might you need to do aside from having great enthusiasm and commitment to change? To better understand what it takes to successfully lead change, a team of researchers studied over 24 change initiatives. Through their analysis, they discovered that successful change leaders share the following characteristics. 1. Commitment to a better way. 2. Courage to challenge existing power bases and norms. 3. Personal initiative to move beyond defined boundaries. 4. Ability to motivate oneself and others. 5. Concern about how people are treated. 6. Ability to maintain a relatively low profile and share credit. 7. Sense of humor about themselves and the situation. Chapter summary. Key topics covered in this chapter include: Topic 1. Organizational change can be driven by external or internal forces and may be focused on operational processes, strategy, people, skills, culture, structure, or a combination of factors. Change is not easy and in many cases, change efforts fail. Firms that hope to remain relevant must constantly monitor the business environment and adapt their strategies, organizational design choices, or processes on an as-needed basis. Topic 2. The need for change can come from both the external environment as well as the internal environment of a firm. In recent years, the external environment of a firm has been impacted by globalization, technology, and disruptive innovation. Firms that succeed for long periods of time are able to adapt or respond to these environmental changes. As a firm responds to external environmental factors, it must also consider its internal resources to determine if it is able to compete effectively in the changed landscape. Sometimes present success can lead to organizational inertia or complacency, which makes future-oriented change even more difficult. Topic 3. Some of the most important aspects of change: its triggers, origination, and magnitude. The triggers of change are driven by the marketplace and the external environment. Some organizations simply react to the changes in the environment. Others engage in proactive or preemptive change to ensure that they are continually relevant and innovative. Change can originate through a planned or organic process. Planned change is generally driven from the top of an organization, while organic change emerges at lower levels. The final aspect of change is its magnitude. Most organizations pursue incremental change on an ongoing basis in an effort to continuously improve, but there are certain times when transformational change is needed. Transformational change can be driven by the organization in an effort to gain a competitive advantage, or it can be driven in response to a fundamental shift in the environmental landscape. Topic 4. Identifying the cause or need for change is just the first step. The process of leading change is often very difficult. Leaders need to create a sense of urgency to galvanize a group of influential followers toward a model or vision of the future. This is particularly important when the need for change is not obvious. The model or vision is realized through the implementation process, which may include different leadership approaches, restructuring processes, removing excess costs, firing employees, or selling off pieces of the business are often performed in a top-down leadership style to secure quick wins. While these approaches are often necessary in the short term, especially in times of crisis, long-term change is sustainable only with a more collaborative approach. This is particularly true when the nature of change is more cultural than structural. In this circumstance, employees need to be involved in the change process. Change leaders need to assess the situation and deploy an appropriate process and style. Topic 5. Resistance to change is generally very high in organizations. A key role of leadership is to combat this resistance. Leaders can combat resistance by engaging employees on both cognitive and emotional levels. In addition, leaders need to listen to employee concerns as well as communicate the need and benefits of change. Involving key employees in the change process and providing training opportunities can be effective mechanisms to combat resistance. Discussion questions to consider. Question 1 on the different approaches to organizational change. Consider the various approaches to organizational change. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each approach? Under what conditions is one approach more suitable than another? Question 2. In changing employees' attitudes, why is creating dissatisfaction with the status quo so difficult? In what ways can a manager create dissatisfaction? Question 3. On how to follow through with change. How is change derailed in organizations? What can managers do to prevent the failure of change processes?